G'day, that's Safety Guy here. Today, policy versus legislation. Legislation is legislated. 9 times out of 10, it is the bare minimum. Okay? But it's been legislated. It's a law. Also a standard. Right? There are some provinces in Ontario that follow a standard, not necessarily legislation. Now, a policy will be equal to, or at least be stronger than or greater than, your average legislation, because it can't be less. So as an example, elevator work platforms. So, the Genie lift, the scissor lift, that Genie boom lift. Okay, the thing with the man basket and it raises up and down. All right, elevator work platform. So the law states, and I quote, an elevated work platform, and we're looking at 148 sub 1 clause D, like Delta, shall not be moved unless all workers on it are protected from ejection by being attached to an adequate anchorage point on the elevated work platform by method of fall protection. Okay, so what's that tell you? It tells you while it's in motion, so that's lateral or vertical, so up and down or driving around, it shall not be moved unless you're tied off, unless you're anchored to an adequate anchor point, right? So you don't get ejected. Now, some policies, and depending on the constructor, the site, the owner of the project, right? You have to get into that elevator work platform and you shall be tied off at all times. So the policy will change from site to site, from super to super, but the law will never change. So instead of having an argument with the safety guy, or that safety guy saying, well, I don't like that law, or we were allowed to do it at company A or on site B, you know what, they let us do it. I don't care. The minimum says that you shall be tied off while it's moving, or it shall not move unless all the workers are tied off. Okay, that's the minimum. Now, if they want you to be tied off at all times, there might be a good reason for that. All right, let's say you don't forget to anchor yourself back when you're moving. So when you're up, you're protected by a guardrail. So you're protected by a guardrail from fall protection. It doesn't protect you from being ejected, but because you're not moving, you're probably not going to be ejected. So that's the point. There are other ones. Say the law in Ontario states that a worker shall be protected from a fall if he's working above 10 feet. That's one section in it. It also states if you're working above water or open machinery 1.2 meters. But 10 feet, that is the minimum for Ontario. Now, there are other constructors out there, okay, and I know of at least 2 of them. One of them is 2 feet off the ground. You shall be anchored in fall protection. There's another one that I know that states that at 6 feet you shall be anchored in for fall protection. Now that's, again, policy. That will change. So the worker asks me, well, how am I supposed to come up with all this stuff? If you know the minimum, which is the law, all right, you're good to go. It is up to you as the worker to find out if it has changed. It's up to the supervisor, your supervisor, to tell you whether or not the policy has changed or has gotten stronger than the law. If you go to a good site with a good constructor, chances are they have an orientation. And this is why they have orientation. It's to remind you of your legislative responsibilities, but it also lets you know what site-specific policies are in effect for that site. So orientation is not just there to waste an hour of your day first thing in the morning before you get to work, okay? It is actually there to inform you of policies and to remind you of the legislation and the legislative responsibilities you have. So you have a right to know as a worker, right? That's one of your 3 basic rights, is the right to know. You have no right to participate and the right to know, the right to participate, and the right to refuse unsafe work. So it's your right to know. That means you need to know. You can find that stuff out. Your supervisor has duties. They have to inform you of all these hazards. They have to inform you of the policy. Okay, so if you don't know, you're not taking your job seriously. If you don't know, you're not taking your duty to heart. All right? So when that safety guy, when that safety professional tells you, no, I want you tied off at all times, and now, well, I don't have to do it when I'm at Toyota. I don't care what you did at that other place. At this place, in my house, in our house, this is the policy. All right? And because you don't like it, that doesn't matter to me. Would you tell a cop, oh, I don't like that speeding law, so I'm going to speed? No. And in Ontario, it's the same ticket. In Ontario, it's still a provincial offense. And all you're going to do is agitate and aggravate. Your safety guy is going to keep an eye on you. Just do what you're supposed to do. Just do the job. Just pay attention. And don't tell me you don't know, because it's your right, it's your responsibility to know. So that's the difference between a policy, which will change from site to site, and a standard and or regulation, which sets the standard. The regulation being written in law, a standard, depending on the province, depending on the state, your legislative body, all right, your Ministry of Labor or your OSHA guys or whatever, they may enforce a standard or they may enforce a regulation. But a policy will change from site to site, constructor to constructor, owner to owner. All right, have a safe day. Thanks for listening. And I hope you're getting a little bit better at your job, because I really hate to see people going home with a limp, especially now we're starting 2020.